Welcome to this episode of Lights Out, your virtual campfire. I'm your hostess with the mostest ghosties, Sylvia Schultz. We've all seen the movies, the ones with the dark, creepy posters with bloody, drippy letters. I would say at least half of the big box office horror movie draws have one thing in common. They center around a haunted or cursed object, a doll, a Ouija board, things like that. I'm not terribly fond of scary movies. I prefer to get my thrills on the page rather than on the screen, but I am a complete sucker for haunted stuff. The idea that negative energy can attach itself to an object with real consequences, boy, it gives me the creeps, but I just can't resist it. That's why, when I found out that the Haunted America Conference for 2016 would play host to Planet Weird, a traveling museum of haunted objects, I was like a kid at Christmas. I just had to go and check it out. Greg and Dana Newkirk are the curators of this museum of oddities. I caught up with them at the conference and got them both to chat with me about the items they had on their table. Their corner of the room was thronged with people. Most of the folks there were just as fascinated with haunted stuff as I am. But both Greg and Dana graciously answered my eager questions. For an hour or so, I totally reverted to the grade school geek I was when I first got interested in the paranormal. Join me in embracing my inner dork as we go Lights Out. Lights Out is brought to you in part by Audible.com. Audible. Stories that surround you. I am here with Greg Newkirk, and we are standing in front of a collection of really weird things. The sign says the Traveling Museum of the Paranormal and the Occult. See them live. Greg, take it away. What are we looking at?
We are looking at a collection of haunted items, cursed objects, and other artifacts of paranormal significance that my wife Dana and I have collected over 20 years of paranormal adventures.
Wow.
Some of this stuff is kind of volatile. There's a few things that we don't let people handle, but everything else is fair game. We started this museum so that people who have never seen a haunted object or might never get a chance to experience a haunted object, we bring it to them. And so we travel all over the country, set up in some of the world's most haunted places, and let people investigate these objects for themselves.
That is so awesome. Now, to my knowledge, I have never handled or experienced a haunted object.
The first time for everything.
I am just fascinated by this. I do see that you do have a sign that says, sign the waiver, hold haunted objects.
We do.
The bottom of the sea cursed things, sea cursed, okay, something. All right, so...
What sticks out to you?
What's here? Well, my attention was definitely caught by this Crone. It says, okay, what we're looking at here is it's about 8-9 inches tall. It's dark wood. It's a carved figure of a woman. She's got a noose around her neck. She's got nails stuck in her eyes, and it says the Crone. 2014, Adirondack Mountains, New York. Discovered in a mountain cave, this folk magic statue appears to be haunted by an old woman. How does it appear to be haunted?
This was discovered by a couple of hikers, and they found it in a cave well off the beaten path.
Okay.
In a place called Witch's Gulch, interestingly enough.
Nice.
And like all horror movies start, they decided to bring it home with them. I don't know. People never pay attention to horror movies. So they brought it home, and immediately poltergeist activity started breaking out. The statue would not be where they left it. They got the overwhelming smell of pond water that would fill the place. And then they would notice that wet, muddy footprints would be walking across their living room. They'd come back and there'd be these footprints there. And it eventually got too much to handle when they noticed an entity in the living room that looked like an old woman. She was stark naked, dripping wet, and she turned and looked at them. The dog wet itself. They freaked out, ran away, went to somebody else's house, and the first thing they did is they actually went to Reddit. They went to the paranormal subreddit, and they said, we found this thing, posted pictures, what do we do with this thing? And of course, everyone says, you take it back, dummy, you take it back. And they said, no, we're not gonna do it. We're afraid to meet whoever put it there. And by a weird serendipitous stroke of luck, a guy that we had just worked with on an episode of Finding Bigfoot was doing another episode. He was sitting in the van. He'd listened to our crazy stories for 2 weeks during the first shoot, and he saw this thread, and he said, I know who you guys have to get in contact with. So this guy contacts us, and he says, what do I do with this thing? And I said what everybody else said. You take it back, and you apologize. They're like, apologize to who? And I said, it doesn't matter.
Whatever.
Apologize to the object. Apologize to the person you stole it from. They said it looked like there had been rituals performed in this cave fairly recently, and they said, we don't want to meet who put it there. I don't know if we could find the cave. And I said, that's fine. Here's my address. Send it to us. We'll take care of it. The day it showed up, we take pictures. We take like an inventory. Every time something weird shows up, we take pictures so we know exactly what it looked like when it came. We write down all of its measurements and everything. And so we went through our little process, and then we went to go watch a movie. We were out in the living room watching Netflix, and all this stuff stays in our office. And I heard a crash in the office, and I thought, it's the cats. They're fighting. Same time every night. Fight and biting time around 7, 8 o'clock. And I said, I'll go break them up. They were nowhere to be found. They were scared out of their minds, hiding under the bed. So I went, what was that noise in the office? And I went back in and I looked around, and the only thing that was different was right above where we left the Crone was a crucifix hanging on the wall. Jesus had been pulled off of the crucifix, thrown to the other side of the room, and the only thing was his one hand just swinging back and forth. It's actually this crucifix that you see right there.
Holy cow.
So we freaked out. Dana said, no way, this one's too much. I said, no, we're going to get this thing moving on camera. And so we set up trail cameras. Took probably about a month and a half, but eventually we got 3 photos triggered between the hours of 3 and 4 in the morning. Looked at them the next day, and they had some strange light anomalies was the first thing we noticed, some weird things that shouldn't have been in the picture, but when we stitched them together and animated them, we noticed she moves. She actually spins just a little bit. And so we thought, okay, there's something going on here. A few weeks after that, I have a great photo of Dana, scared out of her mind, in her pajamas, because we walked into the living room and there were wet footprints that had walked across our couch. And so that's kind of brings us up to speed. We have a 24-hour webcam that we run out of our office. We've got a little lab that's set up. People can go and they can watch it whenever they want. Different things. The Crone was the first thing we put on display, and people actually watched it. We get trigger alerts whenever something moves, and a room full of people, 50 people, watched it. Actually flick a nail trigger object that we placed on it, actually just flick it away. So that's a pretty volatile object. We're not exactly sure what it was made for, but I think we can imply that it probably wasn't very nice.
Right. It looks like some sort of curse object.
Oh, for sure. I think it is. I think it's like some really pure hill folk magic. I think it is like American folk magic, and it was intended probably not for a very nice purpose. And because of that, it's one of the few things that we don't let people handle.
Oh, okay. Wow. So the office, is your office warded at all?
Not really. We have kind of a different outlook on a lot of this stuff. You know, a lot of people say, oh, you guys have you gotta bless everything. You have a priest come in and bless stuff, and we don't. I think that it doesn't matter. Some people protect themselves by imagining themselves in a white light, a healing white light. Some people will do a ritual. Some people will call a priest in, or they will pray. But I think it's all of those things come right down to knowing, beyond a shadow of a doubt, you have power over these objects and not the other way around. And I think that the minute that you slip and you think, this thing has power over me, this thing can hurt me, it has the ability to. I think everything that you do in the paranormal, whether it is with ghosts, Bigfoot, UFOs, any of that stuff, all comes down to your intent, your intention. And that will determine the kind of experience you have. If you go in looking to have a really scary time in a haunted location, you probably will. If you go looking to connect lovingly with the entities that are there, you'll probably have a better time that way. So we approach the objects the same way.
Well, that's neat. Okay. Let's see, what else can we talk about? Now that looks like it has every right to be haunted. Movie?
You want a really good one?
Yeah.
This
Lay it
guy
on
here.
me. Okay.
We call him the idol of nightmares.
Oh, he looks like it. What we're looking at is about 2 foot tall. That's another dark carved wood statue. It looks very African. There's a lot of geometric lines on it. So tell me about this idol of nightmares here.
This guy was discovered in a crawl space under a man's home in Dayton, Ohio. He'd only lived in the home for about 6 months, and he was running some new cable, and he found this statue wrapped in a burlap sack, bound in twine, lots of dirt on top of it. Been there a long time. Brought it upstairs, cut it open. Immediately, his young son, started to have nightmares that the little man was coming into his room at night and pulling the covers off of him while he slept.
Oh, poor kiddo.
They thought, it's just a kid being a kid. It's a scary statue. He's having a scary dream.
Yeah.
Until they started to hear people rummaging through their kitchen at night. Objects would move by themselves. TV on and off. Lights would flicker. Typical poltergeist stuff. And then the final straw was they started to have some terrible nightmares, the worst they'd ever experienced. And they'd heard us talking about the museum. We did like a radio interview.
Cool.
And they heard us talking about the museum, and so he contacts us and he said, I was going to send this to your post office box. There's a post office box and weird stuff comes in all the time. He's like, you guys are in Cincinnati, I'm in Dayton, meet me halfway. Dana says, no way. We're not going to meet some guy who heard us on late night radio to give us a haunted statue.
Nope.
We settled on meeting him in a Walmart parking lot in the middle of the day.
Okay.
Very, very normal guy. Just looked like a dad. I always describe him, he looked like Ted Danson in a baseball cap.
Okay.
And he's got this burlap sack, and he's holding it away from his body. Like, he clearly doesn't want to hold it close. He walks up and he says, are you Greg? I said, yeah. And he said, it's your problem now. And he hands it to me and then starts to walk away.
Oh, jeez.
And I said, no, stop, come back. I said, you've got to tell me every detail about this thing. If you want us to figure out what this is, you got to tell us.
Yeah.
What kind of dreams did you have? And he said, I'm not going to tell you. And I said, please. And he kind of sighed, and then he said, I'm not going to tell you what my wife dreamed about. But I had a dream. It was so real, I didn't know it was a dream. I leaned over onto the nightstand, grabbed a knife, stabbed my wife in the chest, cut her all the way down the middle, pulled her heart out, and started to eat it. He's like, I could smell the blood, I could feel the warmth on my hands, I could taste the blood, and then he jolted away. And after that, he said, I don't know what to do with it. I've heard you're not supposed to burn these things, so I didn't want to throw it out. I was afraid of who might get in touch with it. So he sent it to us. Within a day, we had to cancel an event because our car wouldn't run with him inside of it.
Oh my.
It actually happened twice. We had to cancel 2 events. Got towed by AAA, thought it might be the fuel pump, thought it might be the alternator, no idea. Both times, nobody could find anything wrong with the car. So we started to reach out to people and say, what do you think this would be? And one of our friends put us in touch with a voodoo priestess out of New Orleans, and she said, I think that he was part of a curse that was placed on somebody who used to live in that house.
Ooh.
The problem comes when these things aren't meant to be found when you put a curse on someone.
Right.
And if you find it, it goes back to whoever placed it threefold, right?
Oh.
But here's the thing.
So they want to make real sure nobody finds
sure.
it. Yeah.
Whoever lived in that house and the curse was placed on clearly doesn't live there anymore. And it had been down there so long that the person who placed the curse probably isn't there to go back to. So whatever's attached to it has nowhere to go, doesn't have a job anymore. And she said, you need to explain to it why it's not in its home.
Ooh.
And then you need to give it an offering of rum and tobacco.
There you go.
And we did. We sat down, we said, okay, we're going to give you a place to live. We're not going to bind you, burn you, bury you, put you at the bottom of a river. If you respect us, we'll respect you. And then we gave him rum and tobacco, and never had a problem after that.
Oh, that is so cool.
But people who hold him still have nightmares. Still have some nightmares. Some people who even just see him. Hate to say.
Okay.
Will come back and say, I had a nightmare.
I'll be warned.
And he always features in it. In fact, I had terrible nightmares. For the longest time, every time I'd hold him outside of the burlap sack. And it was always that I'm in a busy, crowded room. It's always like a train station or a bus station.
Okay.
And I get the feeling someone's staring at me. And I look around, and then I see this humanoid personification of the statue. He has bright blue eyes, skin just black as oil, and he's wearing a hood. And the hood is made out of burlap. And he's just staring at me, like he wants me to know he can see me. We were at the Stanley Hotel for an event a few months ago. And one of the things that we do with the museum is we let people investigate with the objects. They can take EVP sessions with the objects, they can do K2 readings, whatever they want. That's the whole point, is to let people experience the stuff.
Yeah.
Group had requested to do some experiments with him. We've taken to calling him Billy.
Okay.
Because he's an idol, Billy Idol.
There you go.
And it's stuck. And so they said, can we use Billy and do some experiments? And I said, of course. So they took him over to the corner of the room. And a woman walks up to me. She grabs me by the arm. I was in the middle of talking to someone. And she says, I'm sorry. I have to tell you this. She's like, I never talk about this, but I'm very sensitive to things. I cannot concentrate because your statue will not stop screaming. And I said, wait, what's the matter? What's going on? And she said, for one, it doesn't like that the ghost hunters are shining lights in his eyes. He hates it.
Okay.
But what he's most upset about is that he can't see you. And I got chills because it's exactly what my dreams were. Him seeing me. And I never had the nightmares again after that. And now I keep him within eyeshot, unless he's in his burlap sack. And we've been doing EVP experiments with him, where we've done about a dozen at different places. Doesn't matter whose recorder we're using, who's doing it, where we're at. It's the same voice that comes through every time. And it's learning to talk. It's very bizarre.
Oh, wow. Explain that.
The first EVP session we ever did with it, we did it on the Nick Groff tour. Nick Groff from Ghost Adventures. And we did this big experiment at the end with everyone who was on the tour, and we started asking him questions. And the only thing that was coming out of the recorders were screams. And no one's ever heard anything like this before. I hadn't, in my almost 20 years of paranormal investigation, heard anything like this. Nick Groff hadn't heard anything like this. And
he's been around.
Oh, he's been around. And he said, this is bizarre. And we've done them at every event since. And every time there's the same voice, but there's less screaming, and there's more like trying to speak. And now there are full sentences that come out. Full sentences that come out, responds intelligently, clearly doesn't like some of the other objects on display. They almost fight for attention. You can hear on the EVPs, you can hear his voice arguing over top, like trying to yell over top of other ones to get attention.
Gosh, that's amazing.
It's the craziest thing ever, and we've never seen anything like it before.
Wow, I never even thought that could happen.
Oh, it's bizarre. And I'm always waiting for the time when it's not going to work, when it's not going to be the same voice, when he's not going to talk, but he always does. It's strange.
Oh, that's amazing. So, you gotta tell me about the haunted sword.
This is the only other item on the no touching list.
Really?
It was given to us by a guy who thought that his son was worshiping Satan with it.
Wow.
And the reality is probably that his son was like doing some magic rituals on the internet. You know, kids mess around with witchcraft when they're young.
Sure.
And so he said, I burned all of his stuff. I don't know what to do with the sword. You guys can take it. So I was like, yeah, of course. You can give me that cool sword. I'll take it. And so he swears that it rings when it's on the wall and that it rattles and stuff.
Ooh.
Hasn't done that to us. But the first day we had it on display, again at the Stanley Hotel, a young girl actually picked it up. Super sweet. Couldn't have been older than 20. And we talked to her quite a bit the night before. Totally normal. She picks it up and she just goes somewhere else. She holds it out and she's pointing it at people, and she's muttering things about how she cannot let it go until she spills blood with it.
Oh.
And this went on for about 15 minutes until people were getting really scared and really concerned. Dana had to take her into another room, physically pry her fingers off of it because she kept saying, I'm not allowed to let it go, I'm not allowed to let it go. When she had let it go, Dana took her outside, ground her, and when she came to, She couldn't remember anything that just happened.
Oh, jeez.
So after that, we thought maybe the cursed sword in a room full of people, not a good idea for people to be handling it.
Yeah.
Might avoid some casualties.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, I'm tempted, but no, I'm not even going to go there. Now, I usually treat haunted objects with a healthy amount of respect. I ride a motorcycle, and that's the last thing I need, is something that's going to kill me horribly 6 weeks after I hold it. But man, you tell me I can't hold something, and that's all I want to do. But I restrained myself and didn't make an idiot of myself by asking to hold the possessed sword. All right, one more thing that I would, probably not just one more, but one more thing I really want to talk to you about is this corrupted testament. Okay.
Oh man, good choice.
What we have got a glass case, and behind the glass is a small brown book, very nondescript. There's no title on the cover at all. It's just a brown cover, and there is a black cross inscribed, almost like burnt, right in the middle of the cover. And the card says, "The Corrupted Testament, 1920, New York. Used in countless deliverances, this Bible was locked away after a failed ritual. Donor wishes to remain anonymous."
That tag is actually wrong. I had a typo when I did it.
Oh.
If you look, you can hear, it's actually 1820.
Oh.
So it's 100 years older than it says on the tag.
Wow, okay.
This belonged to a deliverance minister who
Yeah.
performed hundreds of deliverances with it.
Uh-huh.
You can see where his thumb would sit as he held it. And he would preach with
Would
it,
brandish it,
right?
yeah.
But here's the craziest part about this, right?
Okay.
It even has the sweat mark from people's foreheads. It will be held on their foreheads.
Wow.
People are normally drawn to the upside down cross that's
I
on the
was
back
just
cover.
going to ask you that. Why on the back cover is the cross upside down?
We think, and this was a long time before that the upside down cross was associated with like Satanism and things like that. It could be the cross of St. Peter, who was crucified upside down.
Okay.
But I think the most logical thing is when he was doing deliverances with it, the person would often be facing him in the way that he would lay this on their head, and their face would be coming this way, so they would see the right side up cross.
Okay, I'll buy that for
So
$1.
it wouldn't be an upside down one when he was holding it.
Okay.
But the thing about this is, the family says they believe that it is, their word was corrupted. So they think that this is cursed. It belonged to great-great-grandfather. He would do hundreds of deliverances.
Oh, that was their family member.
Oh, it was their family member.
Wow.
Until one of the deliverances didn't take. And it was on a family member. It was on a niece.
Oh, no.
And because of that, apparently it was a very tough battle. He was bedridden afterwards and then died shortly thereafter.
Oh,
and it was
my.
never completed. So they believed from that point on that it was corrupted. And they kept it, they handed it down, but it stayed in a storage shed for decades. And now the strange thing about this is, depending on who's around, I've watched so many people, when I open that case, keel over and start to retch, like they're going to throw up. People who've not seen other people do it, people who don't know, like it's not a thing that we really ever talk about with it.
Yeah.
Because this, for some reason, people just don't seem very drawn to this piece. It's one of my favorite pieces, but I think people go, that's a book, and they don't really care.
I'm a librarian.
There you go. There you go. That's why you were drawn to it.
Yeah, anything involving books is going to get my attention real quick.
And so we're not sure. Is it cursed? I don't know. Is there something attached to it? I don't know. I know that it's made a lot of people feel physically ill. One guy dropped to his knees when he was holding it, and we had to take it away from him. Ran outside, hugged the ground, came back with a static-free bag and said, "You need to be keeping it in this thing because there's too much energy coming out of it." People who are psychic sensitive will come to the table. They'll zero in on it, and they'll say, "There's something terrible about that book." I mean, you can see I'm holding it just fine. I don't really have a problem with it. It's never really done anything to me. But I have watched people keel over and just about throw up when I pull it out of the case.
Wow. Huh. Well, I'm about as sensitive as a dining room table. So.
You and me both. You and me both.
So it's really, I mean, it's fascinating. It's cool that it's an old book.
Right.
Is there something here that I can touch?
Anything you want. Yeah, aside from the sword and the crone, I'm totally comfortable with you holding anything you'd like.
Okay.
Get a close look.
Down and...
That's what it's all about.
Okay. Well, all right. So, well, I'm going to stay away from the clown needle point.
Oh, he's the worst.
He's the worst.
Oh, he's terrible.
And I'm totally going to stay away from the dolls. I don't do dolls.
Poor Ruby. Ruby's sweet.
No, I don't do dolls. I would like to take a look at the book.
Please do.
Okay. Where can I set this down? I'm going to set this. Well, I'm just going to hold it right here. Okay. Wow.
You handle a lot of books. It feels pretty light.
It does.
Is it a specific type of paper?
I'm thinking, well, as old as it is, it's got a copyright of 1820, published by William Williams out of Utica. I would think that a paper, I mean, you can feel how rough the paper is. It's got a very high rag content, which I think would make it heavier. But
oh, that's interesting.
Okay, so what we've got is the New Testament, translated out of the original. Well, that's wonderful. I mean, I'm not getting any sense of dread at all. I'm just... Yeah, it's just a really cool old book.
Yeah, I know. It's never made me feel weird.
Yeah.
What do you think the cover's made out of? Do you think that's old leather?
Oh yeah, I expect it is. I mean, I'm very, very, very gently touching this upper right-hand corner of the book, and it's obviously leather. You can feel the kind of the skin grain of the leather here. It's very, very soft leather. It's a real pleasure, actually, to touch. It's well bound. Binding, the spine here is a bit...
Pretty banged up.
Yeah, banged up, exactly. But the binding is still really good for as old as it is, and stitched together, and this is nice. This is real nice. I'm going to give it back to you so I can stop putting my sweaty hands all over it. Addendum. Oh, okay. I just woke up. I started putting together this episode yesterday evening, and to do that, I was listening to the recordings that I had made with Greg and Dana, and so I don't know if it was coincidence or not, but I just woke up from a blistering nightmare. I'm not gonna bore you guys with the details or anything, but because there's nothing more boring than listening to somebody else's recounting of their dream, but it was bad. And the weird thing was that Greg and Dana were in the nightmare with me, so like I said, I don't know if it's coincidence or that I had that nightmare when I started working on this episode, but okay, it was weird, guys. Addendum 2. It was hours before I was able to get back to sleep last night. There's much more to come in the second half of this episode. We'll meet Ruby, the haunted doll, which, yes, I wussed out and refused to touch because dolls equal nope. And I'll take one for the team by looking into a haunted scrying mirror. Meanwhile, I encourage you to visit Greg and Dana at weekandweird.com and like Planet Weird on Facebook. They've got great stuff there, including a live webcam feed of their museum. Yes, folks, the crone does move on her own. I've seen it myself. Join me next time when we'll continue to go lights out.